Have you ever thought about how close Europe came to keeping its old order of kings and queens, divine rights, and absolute power? And yet, in a single generation, that entire world cracked apart. Heads literally rolled in the streets of Paris, and from that chaos, an idea was born, one so powerful that it reshaped politics, society, and even the way we think about human rights today. That idea was simple but revolutionary. That ordinary people, not kings, not nobles, not the church, should hold the power to govern. My name is your name. And today we're stepping into one of the most turbulent chapters in history, the French Revolution. It matters because, whether you live in Paris, New York, Lagos, or Tokyo, so much of the modern world, the freedoms we expect, the politics we live under, the revolutions that followed, traces back to that storm that began in 1789. To understand the earthquake, you first need to see the fault lines. France in the late 18th century looked glittering from the outside. Versailles sparkled with chandeliers. Louis XVI sat on his throne, and nobles feasted while dressed in powdered wigs. But beneath the surface, the country was rotting. The monarchy was drowning in debt, much of it from helping America win independence from Britain. Taxes fell hardest on the poor, farmers, workers, and the growing middle class, while nobles and clergy largely escaped the burden. Bread, the staple of French life, became so expensive that starving crowds rioted just to feed their families. It's easy to romanticize history, but imagine this. You wake up in Paris in 1788, and half your day's wages barely buy a loaf of bread. Meanwhile, rumors spread that the king still hunts deer in his lavish parks. How long before anger boils into action? The spark came in May 1789, when Louis XVI summoned the Estates General, a meeting of France's three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and everyone else. But everyone else wasn't just another class. They were 97% of the population. Tired of being ignored, these commoners declared themselves the National Assembly. In one dramatic gesture, they swore not to disband until they had written a new constitution for France. This was more than a political meeting. It was an act of defiance. Soon after, on July 14, 1789, a Parisian mob stormed the Bastille, a prison symbolizing royal tyranny. The revolution had erupted. The old order was under siege. Out of the chaos came ideas that still ring familiar: liberty, equality, fraternity. For the first time, a European monarchy was being openly challenged with the notion that sovereignty belonged not to a king, but to the people. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen proclaimed freedom of speech, equality before the law, and the right of citizens to participate in government. Think about it. Concepts we take for granted today were radical enough then to terrify every king in Europe. But revolutions aren't neat. They're messy, unpredictable, and violent. In 1791, the royal family tried to flee Paris. They were caught, humiliated, and dragged back as prisoners. 2 years later, the king himself was put on trial, not as a monarch, but as a man. His execution by guillotine in 1793 sent shockwaves across Europe. For the first time, a king was publicly executed in the name of the people. Imagine what that meant. That no throne was sacred, no crown untouchable. But the revolution didn't stop at dethroning kings. Soon, it began devouring its own children. Factions split, paranoia spread, and Maximilien Robespierre's Committee of Public Safety launched the Reign of Terror. Thousands were guillotined: aristocrats, priests, political rivals, even revolutionaries who simply disagreed. The same blade that ended the monarchy nearly ended the revolution itself. So let me ask you, if you had lived in Paris then, would you have dared speak your mind? Or would silence have been the only safe option? After years of blood and instability, one figure rose from the chaos: Napoleon Bonaparte. A brilliant military leader, he promised order after disorder, glory after humiliation. By 1804, he crowned himself Emperor of the French, signaling both the end of the revolution and the birth of something new. But here's the paradox. Napoleon spread revolutionary ideals across Europe, even as he ruled as a dictator. Wherever his armies marched, they carried with them the end of feudal privileges, the rise of legal equality, and the spark of nationalism. In Italy, in Germany, in Spain, the echoes of 1789 traveled with French soldiers' boots. The French Revolution wasn't just a French story, it was a global one. Inspired by it, enslaved people in Haiti launched their own revolution, defeating Napoleon's troops and creating the first free black republic in the world. Across Latin America, leaders like Simón Bolívar looked to France as proof that empires could be toppled. Even in far-off Asia and Africa, reformers and rebels cited the revolution as inspiration for self-determination. And here's something to think about. Without the revolution, would the world have ever embraced the universal idea of human rights as we know them? Or would kings and empires still rule unquestioned? Now, you might be wondering, why should we care about a bloody revolution from over 2 centuries ago? Because its legacy surrounds us. When you vote, when you protest, when you argue for equality, those freedoms trace back to the streets of Paris. The revolution showed that people can remake their world, even when the odds look impossible. But it also carries a warning. Ideals without restraint can spiral into terror. So here's my question for you. Do you see the French Revolution more as a triumph of freedom or a cautionary tale about chaos? Let me know in the comments. And if you found yourself swept up in this story, hit that like button so more people can uncover these lessons from history. Bottom line, the French Revolution changed the world forever. It destroyed the monarchy in France, spread the idea of democracy worldwide, and gave us the language of rights and equality. But it also showed how revolutions can consume themselves when fear replaces reason. It is both an inspiration and a warning, a mirror reflecting both the best and worst of human ambition. If you want to keep diving deeper, the natural next step is to watch our video on the rise and fall of Napoleon, from general to emperor to exile. It picks up right where this story leaves off. Subscribe if you want more forgotten stories and turning points from history that textbooks often skip. This episode fits perfectly into our Transformations of Civilization series, where we trace how moments of upheaval shape the world we live in today. Thanks for listening. And remember, revolutions don't just change governments, they change humanity itself.